Riots have swept Britain over recent days, and more outbreaks of anti-immigrant violence are feared this week, leaving the new UK government scrambling to control the worst disorder in more than a decade. Police officers were injured in Plymouth on Monday night as angry crowds descended on the coastal city in southwest England. The latest outbreak of violence came after crowds of far-right agitators set fire to hotels housing asylum seekers over the weekend in two cities, leaving those inside trapped and terrified, while throngs of rioters in other cities damaged public buildings and clashed with police, throwing objects at officers and smashing their vehicles. Protests first broke out late last month after an anti-immigrant misinformation campaign stoked outrage over a stabbing attack that left 3 children dead in Southport, Northern England. Prime Minister Keir Starmer chaired his first Cobra session on Monday morning, an emergency meeting of national agencies and branches of government, to discuss the response to the disorder. "This is not protest," he said on Sunday, adding, "It is organized, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online." The riots are the first crisis for Starmer, who became Britain's leader a month ago after his Labour Party unseated the Conservatives in a general election. His next steps will be closely watched by lawmakers and the public. Throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, violent protesters congregated in city and town centres across the UK, many of them apparently intent on clashing with police and causing havoc. The gatherings ostensibly started as anti-immigration marches, organized on social media platforms like X and on WhatsApp and Telegram groups. They quickly turned disorderly and violent. Protesters set ablaze 2 Holiday Inn hotels in the town of Rotherham, Northern England, and in Tamworth, in the Midlands, Central England, that were believed to be housing asylum seekers awaiting a decision on their claims. The Rotherham Hotel at the time was full of terrified residents and staff, according to a statement by South Yorkshire Police Assistant Chief Constable Lindsay Butterfield. In Tamworth, rioters threw projectiles, smashed windows, and started fires, injuring 1 police officer according to local authorities. In Rotherham, they threw wooden planks, used fire extinguishers against officers, set fire to objects near the hotel, and smashed windows to gain entry to the building, police said. Violence also took place in Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Stoke-on-Trent, and several more cities, mostly across the Midlands and north of England. The Home Office said Sunday that mosques in the United Kingdom were being offered greater protection with new emergency security. The violence was most immediately triggered by the stabbing of a number of children in Southport, northwest England, earlier in the week. A rare and shocking incident that left 3 young girls dead and the country reeling. The far right seized on and spread a wave of disinformation about that incident, including false claims the suspected attacker was an immigrant, to mobilize anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant protests. Police say the suspect was born in Britain. In a thinly veiled swipe at Farage and other Reform members of Parliament, MPs, former hardline Conservative Home Secretary Priti Patel wrote, "Violence and thuggery is always unacceptable. There is no qualification or exception. And politicians on all sides must be willing to stand up and say so." And Diane Abbott, Britain's first female black MP and the longest-serving woman in the House of Commons, wrote Monday, "Nigel Farage must be happy this morning. Anti-immigrant marches up and down the country and black and brown people living in fear." A spokesperson for Farage declined to comment. Plans to engage in violent gatherings have been spread on messaging apps such as Telegram several days in advance, often encouraging attendees to shield their faces or using coded language that stirs up anger at immigration without explicitly calling for violence. A long list of locations of migration centers around the country has been circulated in such groups ahead of a night of anticipated disorder on Wednesday.